Yo, what's going on, and welcome back to Destiny 2 Forsaken, and today we are looking at the Nightstalker subclass and the new tree, Way of the Wraith. And this one was actually the first new upgrade that I got going into Forsaken, and I think it's really cool, so let's kind of look at the abilities. So your super is going to change into Spectral Blades. And this kind of looks similar to Blade Dancer, if you remember from Destiny 1, the Arc subclass. So you're going to pull out 2 Void Blades, and you're instantly going to become invisible, and you're also going to have True Sight during this period. So that means people are outlined in red, so you can see them through walls, and if they're far away or in like mist or something, you'll be able to see them. So it makes it like you're really a hunter, like tracking people down. You know where they are and they don't know where you are. And so in this super, you're going to be able to left click to do light attacks, which are fairly good in PvP, although the tracking's a little wonky. I don't know if they've worked on that, but you're also going to be able to use this for ad clearing. And then your right click is going to be a heavy melee, which essentially your character is just going to do a backflip and go back to invisibility. So you started in invisibility, and if you use a normal attack, you're going to come out of invisibility, but this will be able to get you back in. And if you have that fancy new exotic, which I don't actually have, you're going to be using that right click a lot because it's going to regain you super energy. And then as far as our melee goes, we just have a normal smoke, nothing special here. It's just going to slow enemies and it's going to do damage over time. But now we get into the stuff that makes this class really cool. It kind of adds, how do I say, I guess more utility to it. Even though its super is more of a slaying super, it also has utility in the class. And so Flawless Execution, you're gonna want to be crouched and get a headshot kill. And you can do this on any small little ad, a thrall. All you gotta do is crouch, shoot him in the head. If it kills him, you're going to become invisible for 10 seconds. You're also gonna get True Sight, which much like your super, you can again see people through walls and stuff. And it's also going to increase your melee range for that duration. You can break invisibility by shooting, but you're going to keep this buff up, which means you'll still have the increased melee range and True Sight for the full 10 seconds no matter what. But the ability that then plays into this is Shattering Strike, which now Titans aren't the only ones who can melting point something. You are now, after you do a Flawless Execution, your melee attacks are going to weaken enemies. So this is essentially Melting Point, and they do not stack with each other. They are pretty much the same buff. They do the same thing, which that unit now takes 50% more damage. The only difference here with Shattering Strike is you could use it as many times as you want in those 10 seconds. While you have Flawless Execution up, you can melee everything and they will all be weakened. So if there's multiple bosses, you can melee all of them real quick, and that will apply the weaken effect to all of them. This, combined with like other damage buffs in multi-boss areas, is gonna be probably more useful than Melting Point. As long as you know how to set yourself up for Flawless Execution, you can always make sure that every enemy in the area is weakened. And it doesn't take a melee charge. It's just your normal melee will apply this weaken. So unlike the Melting Point of the Titan, which is going to use up their shoulder charge, this is not going to use up your melee. So you can do it as many times as you want. But enough of just talking about it, let's actually look at the abilities. So first, let's look at Flawless Execution. And here we proc it, and we're gonna run up to this abomination. We can see him through this pillar, and we will now weaken him, increasing our damage. It'll increase our headshot crits, as well as giving us pseudo crits on the body. And here, we are going to get our Flawless Execution and chain into more Flawless Executions. each time it's going to refresh the buff and give us a new 10 seconds of invisibility. And here we can see it still works even while we're not invisible. And as with all the hunter subclasses, I like to use the dodge that refreshes my melee ability, which in this case is our smoke. It didn't get much use there, but it did cover that entire area, so anyone walking through there would have been slowed and damaged. And now let's look at the super usages. So here we're going to use the ad clearing option, which is our weak attack. And we're going to clear out all of those ads very quickly, and then we'll end with a little flip into invisibility. And now let's really look at this invisibility move. If you walk up to an enemy and right click them, you will hit them and become invisible again. So you can use this to your advantage in things such as PvP where people might be trying to kill you. And finally, we'll look at my personal favorite use for flawless execution, which is to apply multiple weakens, and there you can see both of them were very clearly weakened. So how good is Way of the Wraith? For PvE, it has its strong suits, and for PvP, it also has some strong parts. I think the super is pretty heavily PvP focused, and when I first started playing Forsaken, a thing I would commonly do is use this super in Gambit and go in and invade, and oftentimes everyone is immediately gunning for that invader. But if you're invisible, they don't know where you're coming from. So if you super early and use that long super duration, you can sneak up on people and assassinate those high moat targets and get a big advantage for your team in a way that pretty much no other class can actually do. In normal PvP, you're just gonna run around, it's a roaming super, you will have free reign on the area around you for that time. Everyone's going to be running away unless they're popping other supers to deal with you. So I think the Spectral Blades is the PvP focus. Unfortunately, this class then splits to a more PvE focused thing in Flawless Execution and Shattering Strike. You're pretty much not going to be crouching to kill people in PvP. And if you do, I guess if you have your crouch set up and you're aware of it, you could always make sure you finish people off with a crouch shot. And that's going to give you true sight and invisibility, which is pretty good. But the weaken ability is not really useful, since it's 2 melees to kill now, it's not going to matter. And a Titan with a shoulder charge, he's just going to one-shot anyways, so the longer melee range might be what benefits you there in PvP, but I do believe that Shattering Strike and Flawless Execution have more uses in PvE, as it is a lot more consistent to proc. A lot of small enemies can be killed in one hit rather than 3 hits with a hand cannon that you're going to see in PvP, so assuring that kill for Flawless Execution is a lot easier. All in all, I think this class is probably the coolest one that was made with Forsaken, but I think the fact that it's kind of split between PvE and PvP usefulness means it doesn't greatly excel at either one of them. So I think it's usable in both, but it's not the best at both. So go into each activity with your discretion. There's probably going to be places where Tether is better for PvE and where a different class is going to be better for PvP. Not going Nightstalker. Nightstalker is notoriously not a great PvP class, but I think this is the best Nightstalker PvP spec so far. Even better than Mobius Quiver that we have down here with the multiple shots. Either way, hopefully you found this all useful. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time.